BFA programs in general, but specifically BFA programs for stage management, can be some of the most demanding degree paths that you can find in a university. I was fortunate enough to catch up with some current students and recent graduates from across the country to talk to them about ways that you can make the most out of your BFA stage management program. My name is Kent, and this is your half-hour call.
Good afternoon, folks. This is your half-hour call. Half hour to the top of the show, half hour.
All right. Hi, friends. Thank you so much for joining me today. If we can get started by just everyone introducing yourselves and telling us a little bit about where you went to school and how you picked that program.
I'm Gavin Yehle, and I recently just graduated in the spring of 2019 from the University of Utah with a BFA in both acting and stage management. And I actually started as an acting major, and then added stage management after the university let me add stage management. So I didn't start officially as a stage management student until like halfway through my sophomore year, and then I took 5 years to complete the whole program with both BFAs.
I'm Cassie McKay. I'm from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. I originally chose Point Park due to it ended up all said and done being the cheapest option, and at the time the conservatory style training really appealed to me. And then on further consideration, I spent 2 years in that program before deciding to transfer out because I realized it wasn't quite the right fit, as most of the connections were to the Pittsburgh surrounding area. And my focus, hopefully, I would love to work mainly as a New York-based stage manager, working in the Broadway area and also possibly national tours. So I decided to transfer to the University of Central Florida, partially because it was a great program and really had that focus, and also because it ended up being able to fit in my price range. Hi, I'm Lauren. I am a senior at the University of Central Florida in the BFA Stage Management program. I will graduate spring 2021, and I will move to New York and become a New York stage manager. I chose the University of Central Florida quite honestly because it was in my backyard. I grew up in Orlando, Florida, and I lived 10 minutes away from there. So even though I applied to about 10 out of state schools, most up north, I decided that I would be saving tons of money by going to school in Florida. And it honestly wasn't my top choice as far as where I thought I wanted to go. But now that I've been here for 3 years, going on 4, I realized that UCF was the perfect place for me.
My name is Ashani Smith. I am a senior at Western Carolina University in Cullowhee, North Carolina. I actually started, we have a BA, so I'm getting a BA in stage and screen with a concentration in stage management and directing. But I started out in the BFA musical theater program, and I transferred into the BA program second semester of my sophomore year. And since then has been working as a stage manager in the program. After I graduate, I'm looking more into working at maybe regional theaters rather than moving straight to New York. I really want to eventually, the long-term goal is to be the resident PSM at a larger regional theater because, you know, I like having a car. I like kind of the living life and not the hustle and bustle life of New York. So that's kind of where I'm looking at for post-grad plans.
That's so awesome. I didn't know that you were in the musical theater program first. I actually auditioned for that program and then got in, and they didn't give me any money for scholarships. So I said, no, thank you.
Not the and then no, that's one thing they don't do is give money.
Once you got into your program and you kind of got settled in, what was the biggest surprise during your first year?
It was the sheer shock of how much work I had to do. I don't know if this is the same across all high schools, but I had a significantly less amount of work in high school than I did my freshman year of college. I was taking 17 credit hours my first semester in college, taking classes like stagecraft and stage electronics, where I just learned such a huge amount of information, like the foundation for literally everything technical theater. and I was working around the clock, and I slept very little that semester, and it was a shock to me.
I guess I'll give two. The first shock, just coming in first year, I guess when I was still in the performance program, was definitely the culture shock of Western. And can't you have me all over Facebook? So without getting too negative, you already know what's been going on around here over the weekend. So it was definitely the culture shock. Demographic wise, there's 6% of African American students on campus, and it's 80% Caucasian. So it was definitely adjusting to that. I'm from Charlotte, so getting out of kind of the city life and being used to having a very diverse theater scene to coming here was the very big surprise for me. And I guess the surprise in itself once I got in the BA program was just the fact that I left musical theater. I went to a performing arts high school and middle school growing up, so it's just something that I always thought I'd be doing. I did stage manage while I was in high school, so it's not something that I was new to when I changed majors. But the shock itself, I guess the surprise was actually like leaving something I've been doing for over 10 years and I've been adjusted to, and actually getting work in it and kind of being good at it was definitely a surprise, because it was always the scary thing. I'm about to change my major and literally waste so much time. I don't know how to direct. I don't know how to stage manage. And it's been it was a lot more successful than what I was doing in musical theater. So that was pretty much the biggest shock for me, just adjusting to this new life and like the new opportunities I didn't think that I would get had I not left the musical theater program.
I have two, but one of them was when I applied to 11 schools because I didn't know where I stood in terms of the playing field when applying. I didn't know if I was at the top, at the bottom, it's somewhere in the middle. So I kind of applied to a range of programs. So when I got in, it was a lot of like realizing kind of my place in the program in terms of like where my background was, and figuring out, okay, these are the people that have a more intensive background, like maybe they went to a performing arts high school, and then there were people like me who went to a charter school where the only theater experience that I had ever had was in a little basement, and it was just one theater teacher, and she was an actor, so she really treated the technicians really terribly. So like I always had a negative light and kind of tried to push past that in high school. So getting there and like not having a technical director, or even I didn't even have a theater I worked in high school. We rented the local community college's theater, and it was like you walked in, you had 40 minutes to tech your show, and that was about it. It was just like figuring out my place. Like it took me about a couple weeks to kind of find my stride in terms of like the crowd to kind of hang out with, and finding kind of my rhythm in terms of like the amount of classwork, because the classwork was a lot different than what I was used to in high school, because I was taking stagecraft and drafting, and a lot of classes where, you know, in high school I kind of had the opposite with Lauren. I had a lot of work, but it was all writing papers, reading books, and this was a lot of hands-on things, that so kind of like switching my brain around.
I'm going to be a little bit boring here because I didn't really have any huge surprises. And I think a large part of that is because I was really sort of slowly eased into the BFA stage management program, what with starting with being in youth theater and being on campus and having performed on the stages that the University of Utah performs on, like, and so like going into that program and already knowing campus and having walked around campus for like the last, I don't know, 8 years before even starting going to college, and then being in the program and being a part of the program for a year and a half before even adding stage management onto that, I feel like sort of slowly led me in, and I didn't really have a lot of big surprises. I think more so it was like a weirdness of like being in the same state but like not living in the same place anymore, and like figuring out how to not live at home, and more sort of just like generic like living in the dorms, going to college, and like figuring out what that's like and how to live with roommates and like little stuff like that that wasn't necessarily like big surprise.
Have you been able to have a part-time job? I know a lot of you talked about choosing schools that you were more cost effective, which is still expensive because we're in America and that's how college is. But were any of you able to have a part-time job, and was it difficult to maintain? Were there any unique challenges in that?
I have two this semester, and I pretty much had one every other year besides this year. But for a Western, there are very specific jobs that you have to be able to have, whether you're an actress or a stage manager. If you're someone who's involved in the rehearsal process 24/7, like mainly just the actor and the stage managers are, you have to have jobs that like fit. So you can't be off campus jobs really. So I worked in our dean of the whole college's office last year. And this year I'm in the stage and screen office, which is just the school as a whole. So not the big people, but people under the big people that just like house the theater department. And then I work at a coffee shop. It's not Starbucks, because I would literally fall apart working at Starbucks. So it's a cute little like Christian owned coffee house that's on our campus. And I work like the first shift at 7 a.m. So anything you work will definitely have to be early in the morning or have to end at 5 o'clock on the dot so you can race and get ready for rehearsal. So it was kind of harder. It's kind of harder to keep them because those jobs obviously don't need a lot of people staff. So like once they have hired for the year, then you pretty much aren't working unless main stages are over, or you have to like work around that. So the little gap of time you do have to, breathe, do homework, go to sleep, you will go to another job. So I'm lucky that I have these jobs that fit very well, but it takes up that extra time I would have to just, not be doing anything.
So at Point Park, they have it kind of structured with their shop and the various departments within the theater, where they pretty much have a shop foreman and maybe another staff member, and then they have all the technical students working under them. They call it the apprenticeship, and it's pretty much, we set aside this many number of hours. You pretty much apply for the job, but it's there, similar to a work study. And because it was on campus and because it was in the theater department, I was pretty much going from class to a 2-hour shift to then class to another 2-hour shift, back and forth. So a lot of times I was getting up at 7 a.m., getting breakfast, going to class or going to work because the paint shop opened at 9. And I'd be in rehearsal as late as almost midnight some nights. And we weren't supposed to be in the theater building past a certain time, and we were always there. And so being in the paint shop was definitely helpful because like I would come to them and be like, I'm in tech, like I'm not going to be able to work this week, but I'll, kind of cram my hours into another week where it's going to be a light schoolwork and just week in general.
I also had a like on-campus job. The head of the stage management program has positions open for production management assistants. So we would help with like building out the schedule or like, updating the like class and rehearsal schedule in the like online calendar system. I ended up being able to like help both sort of do some TA sort of stuff for her classes, as well as I ended up kind of giving myself jobs that I just wanted to do. So I like redid the booth in one of the theaters. And also because I was working for the stage management teacher, like she knew exactly what my schedule was and exactly what I was going through. And so like if I was in tech, she would totally understand if I just like didn't come in. I really appreciated that as well as something that I could then put on my resume, which then furthers my experience at going out of college. I can say that I was a production management assistant for the University of Utah.
Just like Gavin, I have been working in the audition office at my university for the last 3 years. I get a Disney scholarship every semester, which is they give it to like 4 or 5 students based on need, and I believe it's also a mixture of GPA and things like that. But everyone who has a Disney scholarship, they assign us to different places in the department. So I was assigned to the audition office, but someone else, just like you, Gavin, was in the production management office with our production manager, and some people were in the shop and some people were in marketing, and it just kind of worked out like that. So I've had that, and that is only 4 hours a week, so I can very easily fit that into my schedule. But my first year, I thought that I could do it all, and I got a job at Insomnia Cookies, and my shifts were 8 p.m. to 3:30 a.m. So I would do a full day of school and then go to rehearsal and then do work until 3:30 a.m. And a lot of people in college want cookies at 3 a.m. It's baffling, actually. But after about 2 months, I quickly learned that it was wearing me down and I needed to quit. But the most successful job that I had was last year. I worked at an escape room right across from my university for a whole year, and they worked with me through shows. When I was working on the spring musical, they gave me all weekdays off because I had rehearsal every day, and they would just let me work a 12-hour shift on my off day, which seems like a lot, but it actually wasn't, because working at an escape room, which Kent knows, is so much fun. You use a lot of stage managery skills as well. So that was actually really fun. I highly recommend working at an escape room.
But that's awesome that so many universities have those internal jobs to offer. I didn't even know that it was that common, which is wonderful. What's some of the best experiences you've had, like the most memorable things that you're going to take with you for the rest of your career?
Mine was actually a few months ago, right before COVID hit, about 2 weeks. I was able to shadow the stage manager on the Miss Saigon tour. And, you know, I love Broadway. I want to work on that caliber of show. I love the Big Broadway musical. It's what I want to do. And I had seen the show a couple nights prior, loved it, cried, and then went backstage. And I think it was kind of that moment where I was able to be backstage and be in the moment and realize this is an attainable thing. You can do this. It was a very humbling experience, and being able to realize that, yes, this is something you can do, and it's not this kind of bubble of a dream. So that was really cool.
Since sophomore year in my program, it's all been crazy. Each show I've worked on has been something wild for each show. So I guess Bring It On, that was a show we were in. It got canceled, so that was where I was at. It was 2 weeks before tech during Corona. But I think the experience of itself, it was my first show as a stage manager, so I had only ASM'd one show, but I was the ASM for Beauty and the Beast my sophomore year. So just kind of it being my first show, even though I didn't get to really get the full tech experience, go through the whole thing, just the environment itself, and being able to make the mistakes and learn how to do everything, and having my cast members instill the trust in me was probably one of my best experiences, because I was just talking about this in my stage management 2 class I'm taking this semester. It's just I feel like I have it kind of differently because I am coming from the musical theater program here. So rather than you coming in and as a freshman in the stage management program, you have to establish yourself and work your way up. I was trusted with a lot of responsibility as a stage manager early on, but it's kind of reinventing, if that makes sense, who I already was on campus, because I have to I have to get my friends to look at me as this leadership figure when I was just singing and auditioning with them a year ago. So it was just kind of revamping and getting them to trust me, but also knowing even as my friends, they have to kind of look at me as a leader now. So I was literally having the same conversation. It was a lot harder and I was a lot more nervous, because in some cases I was just I don't want them to think, oh, it's Ashani, that's one of my good friends, she's the cool stage manager, she can do it, whatever. But at the same time, already being a POC stage manager, I didn't want to I don't really guess live up to the stereotypes that we're given as SMs, like we're just mean and we yell at people. But at the same time, I don't want to be a pushover because I am a stage manager coming from a performance program. So it was just kind of finding that balance. I got to like go through all of that in the one show. And the only like really sad thing is that I didn't get to do my first tech. So having to call the show I'm working on now soon and kind of knowing I have to like go through the full process of this show because it's virtual. So like even if we go online, there's no way it's going to be canceled because it's a virtual performance. And learning like a lot of new different things is kind of scary because I didn't get to do it in person yet. So this is kind of my first tech experience and having to do all these technical things and like how theater may be going, but that's not exactly how theater is right now as SM. So it's a little scary, but it's all like kind of all the experiences are going the same.
That's something that I think about all the time with having, because I have a ton of actor friends. I've lived with musical theater majors since I was a sophomore, and it's really, it can be challenging. So that's really cool that you were able to find that balance between cool stage manager friend, not a pushover, but still a leader. Amazing. So for me, I think I have two of the best experiences. One of them is just really general, and it's the people that I've met in the program. It's specifically the SM program, the people that have graduated, and the people that are still here. I think because at UCF, we're a very small program and we get really close and we spend all of our time together and we're all on teams of each other. It's like sometimes I'm my best friend's ASM, sometimes he's my ASM, and it just kind of like goes like that. And I've developed such strong bonds with a lot of the people, and it makes my heart very happy. And then the other one is at the University of Central Florida, we are able to take a show, full-length musical, to our Orlando Union Touring House, the Dr. Phillips Center, and we get to tech and put up the show in 3 days. And I got to take Titanic the musical, which was like a cast of 55. We had 4 professors, we had a kid, a 3-story set. It was giant. And that I was an ASM for that. There was one other ASM and then an SM. And we worked really hard, and there were a ton of challenges that we were not prepared for. And we did so much learning on our feet, and we were exhausted by the end of it. And there's only 2 days of shows, an opening night, and then the next day is closing. But it was an incredible experience, and we got to work with union people and IOTC members, and it was really life-changing. That solidified my love for stage managing.
I feel like all of my experiences, like every show has had its good and its bad, and for me, the not so great experiences have been like people, but the best experiences have been people. And like there are so many like stage management teams that I've had in like working in college that like those are my best friends to this day, and we just like had a blast the whole time, not because the show was good, not because and other people working on the show were good, but like we did this one not great show. It was The Beautiful Game, which, if you don't know, is an Andrew Lloyd Webber musical about soccer set in Northern Ireland during the Troubles, and people don't do it for a reason. But the SM team that we had on that show was like amazing, and we just had a blast the whole time. That was the best thing for me about it. And then like the relationships that you make with your fellow students and others, especially in the stage management program, are just like something that I don't think you can kind of get anywhere else.
So on the flip side of that, what are some of the challenges that you've faced in your programs or just in your transition to college in general?
Coming into college, even before I got into the BA program, I kind of came in with a superiority complex in a way, because I did go to email, please stop, please. Because I did go to a performing arts high school. And so it's just kind of, it was hard coming in because, like, again, like in Charlotte, and you think like when you're in high school, you think it's the biggest thing in the world. And you're like, everybody loves my high school. Everybody wants to go here. It's going to be great. Like, nobody cares once you graduate high school, like not one person. So I was coming in just like, well, I, invented musical theater. Like I'm that one, Broadway bound. And then you just kind of have a reality check when you come to college. You're like, oh, so there are a ton of people who are good at this. Okay, that's great. But coming in for challenges for the BA program now, I think was constantly putting myself down, saying, because I have not been doing this for so long, because I didn't come in right out of senior year of high school wanting to be a stage manager, it was kind of hard to find that confirmation that this is something I wanted to do. Like, it was really like a big risk for me, like changing my major. But at the same time, I kind of confided in myself because I knew that I was going to maybe graduate with a BFA musical theater and not do anything with it. And as far as training and the opportunities I've gotten since switching, I don't think I would have graduated with the BFA and MT and then been like, oh, well, here's my resume of all performance, but I admire stage managing, so I'm here to apply for that. Like, I wasn't going to get any jobs with, passion, like, and not having any practice or not even taking the basic stage management classes. So I think just being able to kind of readjust to like the new life I created once I did switched out was a challenge. But again, like I said earlier, it was also one of my favorite things about it, just ultimately feeling like I was behind. I think that's the advantage, at least on the flip side of being in a BA, that you can kind of form your own BFA track.
That's also going to happen again when you graduate from college. You think, even if you graduate on the top of your game in college, once you enter the real world, you're like, oh, that means way less than I thought it meant. And now we have to start all over again. And I feel like this industry as a whole doesn't do a great job of like confirming that you're good at what you do. Because even if you're doing a show, like the notes are all things that need to change, right? That no one ever really has time to give you notes on things that were good unless it's something you did new. It's just,
and I think, yeah, that's
the whole mindset.
Right. I'm glad you said that, because that's also another big thing too, especially like only imagine where my brain was coming in from a musical theater program, because you can kind of just be told, like, if you're you're either good at musical theater or you're not. Like, you're good at performing or you're not good at performing. So coming from something where you're used to performing and like, this applause means I'm doing great, or this silence means I'm not doing so great, like, you kind of don't get that validation. Because with stage management, and Ken, I'm sure you can attest to this too, and Gavin, now that you've graduated, like, once you get out there professionally, I kind of don't think that's where it's going to be. You're not going to get a pat on the back for doing what you're supposed to be doing,
I think also sort of going off of what Ashani said, sort of the, like, learning to not take problems with the show or like notes personally. It took me a little while to learn, and I'm glad that I had a school program to go through that learning process. And I am also the sort of person that is like really hard on myself, and it was nice to like have a professor that could say, you're really hard on yourself, stop it, it's fine, like, this is one thing you need to learn. Also sort of the like time management thing, because me coming from somebody who was double majoring in both acting and stage management, and then I also took a bunch of lighting and sound classes, and so I was like really trying to juggle everything. And like, I would be in a show and then I would overlap being in a show with like prep week for stage managing or ASMing the next show, and then I would like close that show and I would go to USITT while I was in like prepping for sound designing for the next show, and I would come back and I would go straight into tech for the next show, and just like trying to slot stuff in while like trying to like be a person beyond all of that, because like there's all of the work and you're like, okay, I can schedule this here and I can schedule this here, and like this is gonna work and I'm gonna do these things and this time slots fits together, and like the sort of analytical looking at it. But like the taking time for yourself and the like figuring out how much time you need for you versus how much time you need for school and work, I think is also a big challenge and was a big challenge for me, because I'm definitely like, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to take 20 credits. And that at times really did take a toll. And for anyone out there, oh my God, take care of your gen eds early. Take them your freshman year. Do
While
it. Oh
everything's
my
online,
God.
take your gen eds while everything's online.
Yes,
Do it. Take your gen eds
absolutely.
now.
But yeah, I'm very similar where I'm very, very, very hard on myself. I'm definitely an overachiever, and I think the IB definitely fed into that. But, you know, I have this thing where I don't want to let anybody down. Like, that is just something that, like, if I let somebody down, like, I will tear myself apart about it. And I think with stage managers, like, the whole kind of stereotype that, you know, we are machines and we don't have time to process feelings, and like, so having to be able to work through and be like, no, you're human, you're gonna make mistakes, and, you know, like, accepting that not all mistakes are going to be faulted at you. My first semester, so at Point Park, you have to do a show every semester. And my first semester, I was in SM1, but I was also on a one-act festival, which had 6 stage managers, and there were 6 plays in the festival. And so coming from high school, like, the stage management I did in high school was very different than the stage management I do now. I started the rehearsal process a couple weeks into the semester, and at that point I had only had a couple weeks of SM1, so I was trying to absorb as much as I could from that class, but also, you know, how the team was structured for this festival was I was running a room, and I had never run a room in college before, so because I hadn't had the opportunity to step into another show's room and watch the senior or junior stage manager and their team work, and kind of what the expectation was in the room, was my biggest fear, that I wasn't going to be at that level yet. Like, I was just trying my best, and being able to kind of accept that, like, you're doing your best, you know, and be like, ask a million questions, and, you know, being able to work effectively and, you know, work on the job and being able to learn and improve. And so that was like my biggest thing, was I was thrown right into it. And you know, I have some opinions, and I think that, you know, it needs to be structured a little bit differently and not have first semester freshmen on that festival. But, you know, that's another soapbox. For me, the biggest challenge that I have faced throughout my BFA experience is when I came into the program freshman year, I was a performer in high school. I had never done a lick of stage management. I barely knew what it was. So I was walking into SM1 with my professor, Claudia. I will say really fast, she is incredible. She's changed my entire life and like shaped my career, because I did walk in so blind. But basically, since day one of my BFA experience, I felt like I was playing catch up, because I was the only person in my grade who hadn't stage managed in college, and everyone else, or in high school, and everyone else kind of knew what they were doing already. And I was like learning all of these basic concepts for the first time. So I had to work really hard to be on the kind of the same level of understanding and comprehension as the other people. And obviously I persevered, and I was stage managing the last show that UCF did before COVID hit. And I still found myself second guessing. And that's something that is just the biggest challenge for me that I have always had to try to overcome. And Claudia helps a lot with that. But it's definitely something that I probably will continue facing, especially as I graduate and go into the professional world at the very bottom. But it's more of a mental thing that I have to be like, okay, if you're going to make this mistake, make it hard, like give it your all, you know?
And I have bad news. It doesn't end when you graduate either. You'll feel like you're faking it. I'll let you know when I stop feeling like I'm faking it. Sometimes I still feel like I'm an actor that's acting like a stage manager instead of an actual stage manager. I don't know if anyone else based on the faces that just happened, I feel like a lot of people relate
I'm
to
literally
that.
in the show. This is not real. I'm behind the table in charge of everyone. I said I'm performing as a stage manager right now. That's not the song about stage managing.
If you had a magical time machine and you could go back in time and say one thing to yourself as a high school senior before getting into all of college, what advice would you give yourself?
I actually applied for UCF's musical theater program and the stage management program because I'd been performing throughout high school, and I thought, well, I might as well just keep going. I don't really like this, and I'm not really good at it, but I'm just going to keep doing it. And then I also just went out on a limb with the SM program. But I would tell myself that it is okay. You are in the right spot, and put yourself out there and try to be in this program that you're so unfamiliar with, because it will work out.
Being from Massachusetts, like New York was pretty close. It was about 5 hours with traffic. So like I would try and get down there enough, but I wasn't able to drive really. And when I was able to drive, my parents weren't about to let me make the drive. But so every time I went to New York, I love New York City. And when I was looking at schools, I was really hung up on the fact that I wanted to be in the city for school, because that's where I wanted to work, and I think, I would love to tell my past self, like, you don't need to be in the city to be able to have the training to feel confident to be able to end up working in the city. And I would also tell myself to reevaluate the programs that I applied to. I ended up applying to 11, but when it came down to the choice, it ended up being not really even a choice, because once I was in interviews and got to know the programs better, I realized I applied to the wrong set of programs, just for what I was looking for. So definitely to reevaluate my list, and also when the offer for UCF comes out, do your research, because you should have ended up there freshman year and not had to transfer, because that was a bad decision. So
I guess I mean, as a senior, I really was super lazy. I applied 3 different places, and one of them was like a super long shot, and one of them was really expensive, and the other was the University of Utah. And I was like kind of placing my bets on the University of Utah. Good thing it worked out, but because I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't gotten in. But I was very much like, I'm gonna go into the actor training program. I auditioned for both the musical theater program and the actor training program. And after going through both of those auditions, I was like, I do not want to be in the musical theater program, just because that was not the fit for me. And I don't know, I kind of wish that I had put a little bit more work into it, because while I was in school, there were people that would come in and would tour campus, and as part of the campus tour, they would sit in on classes, and they would see shows and get tours and be able to like talk to professors and this sort of stuff. And I didn't do any of that. I mean, I think it all sort of worked out very fortuitously, where I ended up in a good program, and one that I felt good in and was not very expensive. I don't know. Also, then, sort of on the flip side of that, um, it doesn't matter nearly as much as you think it does. And so, like, if you put yourself out there after graduating and you're like, you do the work, regardless of the school that you go to and the formal training that you have, you can make it.
but I will start off asking 17-year-old Ashani a question. Do you love working in theater, or do you want to be in musical theater? Because I think that was the biggest scope of my high school experience. Like, I did enjoy performing. I did enjoy like being a musical theater major in high school, and also going into my first couple years at Western. But ultimately, like, every year I wasn't in the big spring musical at my school, I was in costumes or makeup. Like, I still found a way to be involved in the production team and the team somehow. So especially once I like changed majors in college, and I like kind of had that come to Jesus moment with like, what do I want to do with my life? I look back on high school a lot, and I was just like, do I want to work? Do I just want my job to be in theater, or did I really want to be Miss Next Audrey McDonald really that bad? And I think now, looking at it, I think I just genuinely, and I do love stage managing. I'm not going to change to like something else in theater after this, but I think that I kind of get fulfilled knowing that like I want a job in the performing arts and in theater, and just making the show happen. And that was like my biggest thing in high school. Like, I gave myself maybe 24 hours to be sad about the cast list, but then the next day I would jump on, how can I still be involved in the production, and how can I make the production happen? I would get in high school, senior year, Shawnee, also to get away from the friend group she was around, so I could allow myself to remember that, because the friend group I surround myself with, senior year, they were primarily, it's BFA or die. Like, I have to go to the biggest programs. I have to have the big college audition process. And so naturally, I just I felt like a failure because I didn't want those things. And kind of similar to some of the things we were talking about today, because I kind of want to end up in the regional theater scope, I've had to like tell myself I'm not a like bad stage manager, because I don't want to just jump ship to Broadway. And it's great to anyone who wants to, but like, I had to like tell myself it's okay that I do not think New York is the only option for me. Everybody's journey is different. I'm not going to find someone who's going through the exact same thing that I went through, even though most of you were like, you know, performers before stage managers. I think the scope and how we all got into our flow of stage management is definitely different. And it's good to find people who have different things about that than you, but also have real similar things. So like, without even knowing, we all come into this call and we have like that performance background. So it's also good to know that like people are coming from that background too. And you're not an alien out here thinking that you're a musical theater performer trying to be a stage manager at the same time.
Now that we said that, I'm wondering if the performers turned stage managers are just more interested in appearing in a YouTube video. If that's why everyone, or if it's actually just that common. That's my question.
I think this almost goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. A lot of like typical actor traits go very well in stage managing, like, you know, the voice that can catch a room very quickly, can hold a room, being able to relate person to person, almost understanding the actor's role because you've been in that position, like, really helps. It's helped me as a stage manager. I think actors might just make the best stage managers.
On that note, any final thoughts for our audience of future stage management majors?
When you first arrive, there is a little bit of a shell shock of a lot of work, and it's a lot of adapting not only to the workload and the difference in the work, but also just life on your own. You know, college, a lot of times, you know, these programs are in areas that are either you're in like a downtown city area, or you're pretty close to one, and or it's just a huge campus and you got your own city and a campus. So just adapting to life on your own, life in college, like it is a big adjustment, and first year is tough, like both physically and mentally. So like, don't worry if you walk in with one thing and you walk out with another degree, because it's all about the process. You know, things aren't going to go your way all the time. You know, like, look at me, transferring wasn't in the plan, but you know, you have to do what's right for you. You have to take the time and do what's right for you.
Especially what you said, don't go in like, not saying, hey, you're going to go and you're going to change your major or you're going to transfer, like, not saying to anyone watching that that's going to happen, but definitely going with the open mind, because just like Cassie said, like, if I was looking at 18-year-old me here in Cullowhee 3 years ago, this week I would have laughed at you if you told me I was going to be a stage manager right now. Like, I literally would have laughed in your face. So definitely take every experience in college and basically live up to it and just be open to the change, and don't be scared of it. That's another thing too. When I was kind of falling into this place first semester sophomore year, and I knew I was kind of on this road of maybe switching things up, I was terrified. I cried every day. I went to all of my friends about it. But when it's in your gut, you'll know when it's time for you to make a change in your life, if you need to make one. So definitely don't go against that change for anybody else, regardless of what whoever's going to say something about you. Definitely go with what your heart wants and what you want to do for the rest of your life, because ultimately this is 4 years and you're out there with the rest of us. So just enjoy these 4 years and learn a lot.
Everybody's path is different, and like, I mean, even all of our paths are different. I mean, yeah, they have their similarities, but like, your path is gonna be different, and know that, and don't try and like fit yourself into a cookie cutter, and like, know that, yeah, you're exploring, or maybe you know exactly what you want right now, but like, that might change, and that's okay. But like, make the program what you want it to be for you.
Especially for people just entering their freshman year of college, lean on your classmates, lean on your friends, because I couldn't have done it alone. And I know my friends, we really thrived when we came together and worked with each other, whether it be school related or personal related. Rely on your friends.
You'll definitely come in thinking like, oh my God, or some people like, you'll come in, oh my God, my best friend from high school, it's gonna be forever, and we're just gonna like email again. You'll definitely think that, oh, like, my best friend from high school is gonna be like the number one, we're gonna go through college together, it's gonna be just like Sex in the City, and we're gonna be great, and it's gonna be freaking amazing. But I found like literally my forever like best friend in college, and you couldn't tell me that I met her like 3 years ago. Like, it feels like a lifetime. So also be open to that. Like, everyone, on the flip side though, do know everyone is not your friend. Do not confide in everyone. It is okay to have acquaintances. It is okay to have associates, but you'll just in your heart, you'll know when you found that person that is going to be there, like, long lasting, that's always there and supporting you through all of this change. So
don't be afraid to ask for help, because so many, like, I went into college like feeling like, oh, I need to do this all myself, and this is my assignment, and these are my classes, and like, I need to do this, and was kind of afraid to reach out to friends and my professors if I was ever struggling with something, and by the end of it, if like, once I did feel comfortable with that and built a relationship with my professors where I felt comfortable like going to them, like, they were so understanding and so helpful when I did just go to them and be like, hey, I'm struggling with this right now, can I get some help? And I think that's a lesson that I wish I had learned sooner, and had learned to like been able to like embody a little bit sooner, because yeah, we want to create a good community of people.
And speaking of awesome communities of people, thank you all so much for being on the show today. I appreciate you guys taking the time to do this. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you really enjoyed it. My name is Kent, and this has been your half-hour call. Have a question or an idea for a video? If you do, send me an email at askhalfhourcall@gmail.com. That's askhalfhourcall@gmail.com.